Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am really happy and pleased to introduce Josh Garellek. Josh is the co-founder of Arctic Leaf Inc. and the Partner Portal. It's a provider. Arctic Leaf is a provider of CRO and UX design in Canada, perhaps beyond Canada, Josh.
It is beyond Canada. It's internationally too. But that's
very good. The topic is Jack of all trades and master of none. Josh, thanks again. We look forward to hearing from you, and we'll be back with any kind of questions. And again, anybody that has any questions can send something into the chat area. Thank you, Josh.
You're welcome. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Josh Garellek. I am the CEO and co-founder of Arctic Leaf and the Chief Growth Officer of Partner Portal. So Arctic Leaf is actually a digital agency focusing on conversion rate optimization and also UX design implementation for e-commerce brands. So what that means is anything that consumer, someone who lands on their store, anything from on-site experience all the way down to retention marketing is where we focus on. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about something a bit different. It's a jack of all trades, master of none, and what that generally means, in my view, is what is a generalist, right? I consider myself a generalist. I'm obviously I consider myself an expert in a broad field of e-commerce, but within e-commerce, obviously it's pretty broad. So I consider myself a generalist, and what that is one who the definition of a generalist essentially is one whose skills, interests, and habits are varied or unspecified. And why I think this is actually really important in business and entrepreneurship is you as an entrepreneur and business owner are going to be thrown into lots of different scenarios and different situations. And if you're too focused on one item or one area, it really puts blinders on and it doesn't allow you to see the full picture. So for me, being a generalist as a business owner or entrepreneur is actually of significant value in my opinion. There's I don't know if anyone really even knows the full saying. They always say jack of all trades, master of none, but the full saying is jack of all trades and master of none, but still better than a master of one. So I think that there's this misconception that people need to specialize and find what you're good at and really sticking to it. And yes, there's definitely those industries, you're definitely going to go out and you're going to hire a lawyer who's going to give you advice on HR, or you're going to hire an accountant who's going to give you highly specialized international tax. Yes, those are definitely areas that you want an expert. You're not going to come to me and hire me to give you, legal advice on a commercial transaction. That does not make any sense. But to find what you're good at, to be, more of a generalist and a jack of all trades as a business owner, you have to tackle lots of different areas from HR, finance, accounting, strategic vision, presentation, sales, marketing. So having all of these different tools, in your shed as a co-founder entrepreneur, I think really gives you a leg up and really sets you up for lots of success in the entrepreneurship world. So how do you actually become a generalist? Or first of all, do you want to become a generalist? But in my opinion, the first thing you have to do is be a sponge. And I'll tell you a quick little story. When I first started my career out of university, I took a sales and marketing coordinator role at a small biotech startup out of Montreal, Quebec, Canada. And when I was working with my VP of sales, he basically asked me not to speak in any of our meetings or sales presentations or anything for a minimum of 12 months. I sat there and I was like, that's really weird. That doesn't really make a lot of sense. Why can't I speak? It was a little bit of an ego hit. At the time I was getting my career, I was starting, I was excited. And here comes this VP and he tells me, hey, you can't say anything in any of these meetings. I actually look back now and I think that was extremely valuable lesson because it allowed me to listen. It allowed me to, listen, ask questions, understand the types of requests that were coming on. And also, I think it was really important to me because I started to be able to read the room, being able to read who is the actual decision maker, who is the person who's really we want to talk to, and identifying those micro expressions that, the little smiles, the smirks, where your eyes are going, eye tracking, things like that, that really gave me a leg up to understand how situations were unfolding in front of me. So while it was a weird request and a weird ask initially, I think that it was actually extremely valuable for me to being that sponge, to be able to intake all that information so that I can adapt to situations. And I'll talk about that in a few minutes about being able to adapt. Right. So then knowledge is valuable. Knowledge is power, and all knowledge builds on itself. So being a sponge, taking that information, taking in those meetings early on in your career when you're first starting your business or being an entrepreneur, don't be afraid to reach out to people and take those meetings. Sometimes those meetings are being at 6 a.m. Do it. Get up, do the hard stuff, and be a sponge. I know the next point here, it says say yes to the right opportunities, and the word I want to really focus on is the right opportunities. I've given a lot of talks around being focused and saying no a lot early in your career, and I still 100% believe that. But at the same time, it's understanding and identifying situations that it makes sense to say yes to. And being a generalist, it's pretty interesting. I get a lot of different opportunities. Lots of different people are coming to me for investments or advice or different types of projects within my organization. And you get to the point where you have to start to say yes to the right opportunity rather than no's, right? So then moving a little bit further, we talked about being a sponge, being more of a broad focus capabilities, being a generalist and a jack of all trades and master of none. So again, I don't actually believe that there's you shouldn't have experts and you shouldn't have specialists. The difference is that I hire really, really smart people to tell me what to do. And I didn't invent that. I think it was Steve Jobs who said that years ago over at Apple. Surround yourself with experts in the fields, right? So as a CEO and co-founder, yes, you're being looked to make all the right decisions, have all the answers, know everything in all the areas, but that's not feasible. You can't be an expert in every single thing. So there's a yin and a yang, right? You have to have the generalist, and you also have to have those individuals who are specialists. So in my space, I can sit down with my experts. I can pull in my CTO. I can pull in my financial advisor. I can pull in my accountant, and they're going to be the experts that are going to advise me and give me the knowledge that I need to make the right decisions going forward. So there's definitely a place for both, right? There's got to be a yin and a yang. There's got to be an ability to hire experts and surround yourself with those right people in the right fields. So what's the value of being a generalist, right? So I think it's having a lot of insights into many different industries and experiences. So if I look at myself, I can really pinpoint down in my career. I started in sales and marketing. I worked in the adult entertainment industry for a little bit that drove a ton of innovation. I worked in, network marketing that had a ton of, social aspect to it. So there's lots of different, industries that you need to kind of diversify yourself with and diversify your knowledge, right? And being a generalist, the value of that is being able to be relatable in many different groups and people. So it's something that really, I believe is an important aspect, like I said, to being an entrepreneur and a business owner. The world is super interconnected. So, you have to be able to adapt and be able to not be married to a single industry. Because what happens if that specialized skills becomes defunct, right? Or if it just doesn't relate to the industry anymore. I mean, we're seeing that with innovation now over the years. Robots are taking over manufacturing. They're doing pick and packs. If you go into Amazon, there's robots everywhere picking up orders, whereas before they hired, individuals to do this type of work. So being able to have a broad skill set is going to give you an advantage overall, I think, in the long term, rather than specializing in one particular key area. As industries evolve, being able to adapt to those industries, I think, is really, really important. Just kind of going back to that. Actually, no, we'll keep going here with the chameleon advantage. So this is something that I've talked to and I kind of implement quite a bit across my life. And when people ask me, like, how do you know all this stuff? And so really, I boil it down to being a chameleon. And so what does it mean to actually be a chameleon? So we talked about being a generalist, so being a chameleon, as well as being adaptable in most situations and being relatable in those situations, right? It's getting those reps, right? It's getting experience and exposure to lots of different industries. I think one of the biggest things is read everything. Back in the day, I used to read TechCrunch and Mashable and all these different types of tech blogs, and I was a walking encyclopedia for all the different types of tech startups and apps. And what that did is it made me relatable. In every situation, I was able to have a conversation. I was able to pull in some information from that I've obtained across the years, to be able to somehow make sense of it all. I think a lot of people are afraid to be the dumbest person in the room. Like I'm actually okay to be the dumbest person in the room, or not dumbest, but just maybe not the smartest person in the room, because that means I'm doing something. That means that I'm in the right place. I'm setting myself up for success, and I'm going to get the information that I'm looking for. And then it's fake it till you make it, right? So it's and getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. Sometimes you're going to get asked those hard questions. Just being able to adapt with that and kind of run with it. And I'll tell you a little story about over my agency. A couple of years ago, I started a retention marketing department. So focusing on email marketing, retention, the loyalty phase of the buyer journey and the buyer funnel. So, it was a 1.5 person division. It was just getting started, and my lead email marketing manager / director put in their tender of notice, and they're saying that they're resigning and moving on to another role. And I sat there and I'm like, oh shit, like, what do I got to do? Like, I know this industry, I know the different email service providers, but now I'm getting thrown into a position where I don't have all the answers. But what me being as someone who is more open to being this kind of chameleon effect and this generalist, I was able to adapt to the situation. I knew how to ask the right questions. I knew how to get into the software, look at all the help documents. And within 72 hours, I was comfortable enough to be able to answer all the right questions, because I'm comfortable with being uncomfortable. So it's just recognizing that you're going to get thrown into situations sometimes that are going to feel uncomfortable, but it's you feeling like you can adapt to that situation and manage it appropriately. And it kind of being a chameleon is being able, like I said, being adaptable, and a key component here is learning to listen, right? And I saw I actually just saw it this morning. Gary Vaynerchuk put this out. So to be a great leader, you have to be a great listener. And it's extremely correct, because as a benefit as a leadership is being able to show empathy, right? Not everyone's management style or everyone manages correctly or the same as everyone else, right? So as an example, you have, in the tech industry, a lot of developers are a little more introverted, right? Super smart, funny, but when you're put into a certain situation, they don't like conflict, things like that. So you have to adapt your management style and leadership style to work with those individuals. And then on the other side, you have the marketers, right? The big ideas, a squirrel running, super high energy, and being able to lead and support them in a management role effectively is super important. And it talks about it's and just knowing how to ask those right questions. So a lot of good benefits of being a chameleon, being that generalist overall, because it does allow you to adapt. So I saw this, right? There's this idea of left brain versus right brain. Is it a myth? A lot of people say yes, a lot of people say no, depending on the different views and opinions you look at. I believe in this. I believe that there's a left brain and then there's right brain. And again, being able to adapt to both sides of the coin is what being a jack of all trades, master of none, and being a chameleon is all about. I am definitely a right brain individual, much more creative, definitely lead with emotion. So it's and I can tell you firsthand that, like, my management style, if someone was managing me, I would like for them, or they would need to kind of adapt a little bit that management style to make sure that, they're hitting all the marks. Like the different things that I would be looking for may not necessarily be the same thing as someone who's left brain or someone else, right? So just kind of keeping that idea in mind that not everyone is cut from the same cloth, and that everyone has a little bit of a different approach in how they need to be managed and supported. So we talked a lot about the pros, right? Now there's a couple of challenges in being a generalist, is that a lot of people like experts, right? So, if you're as a digital agency, my company, Arctic Leaf, we're an agnostic agency. So what that means is we work on all subject matters that is essentially legal, all verticals. And we really take industry knowledge that we learn from one sector and we apply it to different sectors. And I really believe that that gives us a leg up in a value proposition. But what happens at times is we'll get companies that come to us and said, hey, we're in the educational space. We only want to hire an agency that has a ton of experience in the educational space. And I can't win that business, right? Is because, this individual or this organization is looking for someone or something that is highly specialized in one field. And the same thing it goes is like, the challenge is to show your value in those sectors and be able to show that you can keep up with certain industries. As a good example is the NFT or blockchain industry at this point. I think it's very, very fascinating, but it's very hard to be. I think you got to be a generalist in that space because it's extremely challenging to be an expert. But and this kind of brings me to kind of my next point of like, without, there has to be a yin and a yang, right? There has to be on both sides of the coin. So as an example, right now I'm doing the 75 hard program, I'm doing my second round. I don't know if you guys have looked at it, but it's super challenging, but like check it out. Great for mental toughness, especially in entrepreneurship. So I'm reading a book. The book that I'm reading on this program is The Millionaire Mind Seminar by T. Harv Eker. I actually read this book about 14 years ago. It helped me kind of remap my money blueprint on where I wanted to get to and where I wanted to go over the years. It's really interesting to read it again because there's a couple of key points that really kind of drove home, and kind of the yin and yang, the give and take kind of situation. He talks about there being, a lot of people like to give, right? Giving is a lot easier than it is receiving, right? So you get a lot of euphoria, you get a nice feeling, you feel really good when you give, right? But a lot of people have a hard time receiving. So but you can't have both, right? You can't have only givers and only receivers. The world wouldn't work. So the same idea that I'm talking about here is that, yes, while there's some challenges in being a generalist or a jack of all trades, master of none, the world would not work if we were all experts, and the world would not work if we were all generalists. So there has to be a yin and a yang, or a give and a take, where that some people are experts and some people are not, and we just have to figure out how to break down those challenges. So how do you stand out from the crowd? If you're a generalist, what do you do? So, as an entrepreneur, share your knowledge, get on platforms like this, give insight, start a podcast, blog, be active on social media, be active on LinkedIn, and then promote yourself, right? I think a lot of people get afraid of that. And you got to sell yourself. You got to sell who you are and all the different ideas and ideologies that you believe in, and how you can support all these different sectors or industries, and celebrate your wins, right? When we launch a new store, we go on social media and we blast the hell out of it, and we say, hey, we launched a new store. Here's all the benefits. We do case studies. So don't be afraid to talk about your wins and your successes, because if you don't, no one will ever know about you, and then ultimately you don't go anywhere. So that kind of brings me to the end of the presentation. But really what I wanted to kind of hone in on, like I said, is being adaptable, right? Being adaptable to markets, being adaptable to the industry. I think that we've all lived through a very interesting last couple of years where we've had to adapt to situations to set. So I think that we've been the last couple of years have really kind of set us up to be more of this kind of jack of all trades, master of none, and being much more adaptable as the world kind of, completely went haywire. People had to adapt to working from home. They had to go remote environment. They had to have new technologies. Social circles changed, things like that. So we're not that far off from being a generalist. It just kind of applying it more to your business philosophies and thesis. That has done wonders for me, and it's really kind of helped me set up myself for success. At this point, I don't see myself as an expert in anything. I know a number of markets and sectors, but I'm what I would consider is much more a generalist and being able to adapt to different environments and applying that chameleon effect that I talked about before. So with that, I hope that you guys all got some value off of this. It's an interesting topic. It's a little bit different than maybe others have spoken to you about. I'm happy to connect with people. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. Please do not try to sell me something. I can't. The amount of people that just reach out and just say like, hey, let's get on a call for 15 minutes and I want to sell you something. Please don't do that. I will happily give time to entrepreneurs and happy to do mentorship, but try to connect with me. I share this information. I put stuff on social media. Like, it's not hard for me to figure out, who I am, my interest is, and where they lie. So reach out, happy to connect, but don't try to sell me something.
Josh, can I sell you on the concept that you are an expert on leadership?
Can you sell me on that? I sure. So
yeah, we've had a lot of discussions over the last couple of days about leadership, and I think the profile of it is something that you fit in quite well. It was a great presentation just to hear this from you. You mentioned something that I find interesting because I found it in my career being a kind of a very difficult obstacle to kind of get over, and that is dealing with the conflict adverse. There are so many people who are conflict adverse. It's very natural. People don't like conflict. How difficult is that? Because you could be in a room with some people. You really have to understand who those people are, because there could be problems that you're not even aware of because people did not bring it up. So I'm just curious how you deal with that in the organizations that you work with.
Yeah. So in our organization, we're very open door policy. We have a Slack channel. Everyone in the company has access to the CEO, the COO, the CTO. We've really honed in that culture of, hey, you can reach out to anyone in the company. We also hold office hours. It's kind of like old school, like college. So the CEO, co-founders, every Thursday for an hour, one of us opens a Zoom room, and anyone within the company can come and meet with us and talk to us about whatever they want. It could be, hi, how are you? It can shoot the shit about something, or it could be like, hey, I'm having a challenge on this particular product, or you know what, I'm having a challenge with a coworker, and I really want to just talk to you and kind of figure out how we can support the situation. So I think it really comes from fostering your culture and creating an environment where it's much more open and people feel like they can communicate. Taking it one step further, Jeff, is we've also created an anonymous feedback tool inside of our agency dashboard. So anyone can kind of send a message in saying, hey, I don't like timers, or, I don't like what Josh wore. I don't like the shirt he wore the other day, or whatever, right? So I think it really kind of comes down to the philosophy and the culture that you come up with at your organization.
Right. Yeah, no, that's great. And I'm sure that, well, I would imagine that since the pandemic, with the virtual relationships that we now also have, we're in touch with more people and can have these kind of conversations a little bit easier than having the in-person meetings, which some people have difficulty with. And there's some people actually prefer communicating over Zoom now, which I guess will be a challenge as we start becoming more engaged and personal. That personal feeling might be slightly different than what we have going on here.
I agree with that. I think the in-person stuff is going to be a lot less than it was before. I know we're seeing a lot of different companies trying to bring people back. What's a return to office environment look like? But it's funny because I was talking to a buddy of mine the other day about, hey, I went into the office and I had a Zoom meeting with someone who was in the office 3 doors over. I'm like, yeah, I don't really understand that. That's it,
Yeah.
right. So that made no sense.
Yeah.
To me. So, yeah.
Right. Well, anyway, you had a lot of great advice here. And one thing you were talking about also about differentiating yourself or really standing out and succeeding and different things like that. But, you know, there was an old Woody Allen quote that 80% of life is just showing up. And I think that still applies. I mean, you really gotta get out there and, you know, even if you're not speaking, as you said, just listening, just show up. And there's a lot to learn just from this event and or seeing this session. Are going to learn quite a bit. So just keep attending these kind of things. And Josh, you were great today. Thanks so much, you know, for your time.
No, thank you, Jeff. And I completely agree with that. And, you know, there's a quick little end with this is show up, do the work, get results, right? That's it. No bullshit. Show up, do the work, get results.
Right. And enjoy it.
And enjoy it, yeah. And keep consistent, right? Like that's the other thing is it's super easy just to fall off. You know, even just really quickly, it's like they talk about podcasting. Most people fail at podcasting because they stop at like show 5 or show 6. Like do the work, just keep doing it, and you'll start building that audience over and over and over again.
Right.
Show up, do the work, get results.
Yep.
All right.
Josh, thanks again.
Jeff.
Take care of yourself.
Talk soon. Bye-bye.